Thirnanog?
No, it's pronounced Aquaman.
God, I am not looking forward to all of the sea fishy puns that Noah's gonna hurl.
Yeah, it's
They're
breathtaking.
going to come rolling in.
No.
It's breathtaking. Like, when you're underwater.
No.
And you can't breathe.
All right.
I'm done.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast. And
No, it's a sea of comics.
aptly so,
Yeah.
a sea of comics.
See.
Because today, our first deep dive,
No.
also,
Again.
Kayla's not a fan of puns, but it just happens that this is what it is. Our first deep dive into a character is Aquaman.
This is how we got Noah to do Aquaman, is that when he realized the sheer quantity, the tonnage of punnage
Oh my
that was
gosh.
going to happen,
Oh my gosh.
he was okay to
I
do
actually don't dislike puns. It's just
Guys,
you have
we're
to put a break.
going to have one shell of a time. It will be great.
it. Now they're just getting weaker and like
Well, yeah.
No, I
Maybe
promise-
they'll die off a natural death now.
I promise there will not be a lot of ocean or Aquaman puns. But anyway, yes, our first deep dive is into Aquaman. This whole episode will be solely on Aquaman and his supporting characters and powers and location
And best moments.
and best moments. And yeah, so we will dive right into it.
Sure.
There was no other way that I could have done that.
look, I mean, I honestly do think that this episode is going to be pretty good. I think we're going to make a big splash. If I
All right, okay.
so
We're just
tired.
dipping our toes in the water.
No!
Of this. Okay, we'll get right into it. So, Aquaman.
I like turtles.
Oh,
Okay, so well, I did
When
my
we
best.
eventually get this episode to start, it will be about Aquaman. Anyway, so yeah, Aquaman, better known as Arthur Curry, or Orin. That's his Atlantean name. Everybody has a secret name in comics. But yeah, I will start off with kind of just doing the basics. His powers. Because that's, like we talked about in our hero episode.
What can they do?
Yeah, exactly. What can an amphibious superhero do? Well, so he has Atlantean physiology, which essentially means he can breathe underwater. He can withstand tons of pressure on him, which makes him pretty invulnerable to a lot of things, like gunshots. Like, he'll get a little marks and stuff, but he will not get penetrated by them. Amphibious nature, which means he can breathe underwater and breathe on land. Guess that comes in handy when he joins the Justice League. Enhanced vision. You know, he has to see in those murky waters, which makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
Enhanced hearing, enhanced smell, which I guess that makes sense. Superhuman strength, which a lot of people, I think, underestimate about Aquaman. How freaking strong he is. I mean, he's pretty strong. He can go head to head with Wonder Woman. So, just saying, he's pretty strong. Stamina, durability. He has energy heat resistance, which also makes sense because, you know, there is volcanic activity down in the ocean. So, makes sense for that. It's credited to him that he actually might have some of the fastest reflexes as well of any superhero aside from the Flash, obviously.
Yeah.
So he has superhuman reflexes because Deathstroke usually has that title, but there has been instances where Aquaman can out reflex him.
Oh my.
And then,
When they're flexing. Aquaman sometimes wins.
yeah, and his biggest one, I think everybody kind of attributes to him aside from breathing underwater is marine telepathy. So it has been said that he talks to fish. He doesn't talk to fish.
he
No,
commands them.
And he can talk to sharks and dolphins too.
Yes, all marine life.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah.
That is a good
It's
point.
not just fish, guys.
I did want to point out, though, something that is interesting. So I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but so in the DC universe, there's this thing called the red, which is animals, mammals, all land creatures. And then there's the green, which Swamp Thing is the avatar of and the protector of.
Plants.
That's all plants, yes. And then Aquaman has something called the clear. So there's one for the ocean as well. And that it's said that that's where his ability to kind of command and kind of manipulate fish or any marine life, that's where that comes from, is the clear. So thought that was an interesting thing to kind of point out. Because
what is it? So it's like this weird psychic field or something like that. It's like something like that.
Aquaman has?
Yeah,
like, well,
so
like the difference
red,
between
the, clear,
the red.
like
yeah.
the red, the clear, the gray. Are they like, is it magically based? Is it like
yes,
a weird
it's,
like
it's
cosmic
a well, no, it's more of a primal.
It's like a union thing, like a...
Huh? No, I mean, he just has access to it, just like Animal Man has access to the red.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing has access to the green, and he has access to the clear.
These colors,
yes. DC likes colors. You have the lanterns and then these guys. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially his powers. I mean, he's a master combatant as well, obviously. He could kick some ass with a trident.
Mm-hmm.
From your assessment, what you've just laid down, does this describe a weak character? Yeah.
Someone's
I don't think it
salty.
does. You son of a bitch. Was that accidental?
No. I thought about it and I hate myself.
Yeah. I just feel like it's all because of that damn Super Friends show.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean...
That he's weak.
I actually I can talk about that too.
Yeah,
in like
do.
the editorial part of his history.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, to get to there, the character was created in 1941. He appeared in More Fun Comics number 73. He was always kind of a secondary character. So it wasn't until the Silver Age when he actually had his own, like, these are Aquaman comics.
They just titled Aquaman.
Yeah.
That's how we know.
He wasn't really, really famous until the Super Friends show.
Irony.
And it was more infamy because he kind of became a meme of the time where... Like,
and still to this day.
Look how useless Aquaman is. Yeah. He can throw fish at people.
Which if you've ever been to the Seattle market, you know that that's not easy to do.
No, and I feel like Robot Chicken kind of tried to bring that back too. Like,
yeah.
But they were hilarious when Robot Chicken did it. Super Friends was trying to be serious in a weird way, like make it for kids, but it was a detriment to that character.
It really was. But again, he became like a household name because of that show. Like he wasn't a very, very popular character until Super Friends, until people started making fun of him. And it wasn't until the 90s that like there was more serious takes on him.
They wanted to have like to show the sheer variety of characters they had with that show, like the DC, like, we've got a fast guy, we got a strong guy, we got a girl, crazy, and then we got a water person.
The one scene I always remember from that, and is usually a meme, is him riding on those two dolphins. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Why does he have like
it was worse
handles?
Than you think. It's worse than you remember. Because he usually didn't ride on dolphins. He used to ride on giant seahorses.
Yeah. Well,
That's amazing.
Which don't exist.
Cool. I mean, neither do mer people.
I thought you were about to say, neither do dolphins. That's magical.
Those dolphins, probably not.
Yeah. It's also, can we admit, it's a bad joke at this point?
It is a little pandery.
It's hacky.
Yeah.
It's how many times are you going to make a joke about like, oh, he talks to fish, or away from that, just the idea of like, at this point, they're not even doing a joke about Aquaman. They're doing a joke about a joke about a joke about a joke. Like it just kills me.
That's the whole reason we're actually doing this.
Yeah.
It's not the movie.
I'm trying to debunk some.
Yeah, I mean,
he's so bitter that he was like, guys, we need a deep dive Aquaman.
We didn't even mention that. That's sort of what made us want to do this episode.
Well, I mean, aside from wanting people to know that he is a cool character, but his movie is coming out this month. And
soon.
It looks amazing. I mean, even just visually, it looks really good. I'm really excited for it. I
had told a bunch of people, or I've been saying this, I'm excited that it's like going to be people's first impressions of the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there are going to be an entire generation of kids that when they think of Aquaman, they're like, oh, he's so silly, he's in the water. It's going to be badass Jason Momoa.
I know.
Breaking swords and punching
I contemplated putting that at the end of the editorial history. And it's like, and everything changed when Jason Momoa was cast.
Which I think is true. I think it was a really smart choice because he is a cool guy. And I think to kind of make people that don't read the comics, because I think most people that read the comics like some aspect of Aquaman, even if they don't like him, they like some aspect of him.
Yeah.
But people outside of comics, I mean, I remember talking to my mom about it, and of course she's swooning over Jason Momoa the whole time. But she's like, yeah, he just talks to fish. I'm like, but he doesn't just talk to fish.
Well, they're going to find out soon.
Yeah.
A couple of things there. Jason Momoa, what can he do? First of all, think about what he did for the Dothraki people.
He died.
Well, I meant he helped. I meant he helped their image.
Yeah.
I mean, before we they suck, but now awesome. Thank you, Jason. Second thing is that you can't say enough for like it bothers me. It's like people openly ignorant of the character having committed opinions about the character, where it's like they're not like, doesn't he just talk to fish? Like, all he does is he talks to fish. I know that I know two things: the Earth is round, and Aquaman just talks to fish.
Well, some of those people think the Earth's flat, so we'll see.
That's a good point.
But, yeah, I mean, I think it is a misconception with the character. He's probably one of the most misconceived characters, or how people think of him. And I mean, that's fine. If you read the comics, watch some of the animated movies that come out, you'll know that's not true. But if you just see it from the outside, I can see why people think that way. I mean, if you just saw Plastic Man kind of shape-shifting into boats and helicopters, you'd be like, that character's weird. You wouldn't know that he has a dark origin or anything like that.
That's
so, I mean, it's just more of educating yourself.
So let me educate. He's a badass, and if you don't like him, you're dumb. So he's very powerful.
I forgot to say one of his powers, which is even a power.
Yeah.
It's a master swimmer.
No, it's true.
No.
Well, it is though. It is technically one of his powers.
No, it's true. He swims in the water almost as fast as Superman can fly.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Kayla's not impressed with this power.
I know. Here's the thing that's crazy. This is how spoiled we are for superhero powers. If one of these powers was real, if you knew somebody who could talk to mackerel, they'd be the most magical person you'd ever met. They'd be most popular.
I hope it was a magical person.
Or just they're good with languages. Or something, I don't know. They're good with mackerel language. But yeah, no, he's great. And people underestimate too, because like they don't realize he's like he fought Superman nearly to a standstill.
Yeah.
In Rebirth.
Well, I mean that's what I'm talking. I mean, most people that read the comics will know. I mean, he's somebody that you don't want to really
make an enemy of.
Yeah, I mean, he has a whole kingdom behind him.
Yeah,
Atlantis. He has most of the world is covered in the ocean, which is his kingdom.
He used to have more powerful telepathy. That's a thing that they sort of developed. It's one of those powers. Because that happens if you follow comic characters for long enough. Writers to create stories will often try to exaggerate one of their powers to sort of create stories and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There was a time when he was a really powerful telepath, because even with humans, because he could tap into the parts of your brain that were related to your marine ancestors.
That's crazy.
And give you a seizure. That was his big move.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Which hurts.
My.
But since New 52 and Rebirth, they've sort of scaled that back down to where he just kind of commands sea life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
I did also kind of in the beginning, I wanted to kind of set the setting a little bit, talk about Atlantis a little bit. Atlantis history is really weird, just like all comics. There's no clear origin. There is some, but there's not, and it's gotten rewritten. Sometimes it's just existed and they don't go into it. But apparently like 65 million years ago or so.
That's a long time.
When magic was kind of waning and everything, and Atlantis it was kind of the capital of human civilization. The magic was waning, and to protect the city of Atlantis, this giant kingdom, they put this big magical dome over it. And when they did that, hence what happened about 65 million years ago, a meteor hit and it sunk Atlantis, but they were protected because they were in a dome, but they did not breathe underwater at the time.
Oh,
which did not go so well with them because they were trapped in a dome.
Good thing for that magical dome.
Yeah, exactly. And the scientists there and the magic people ended up making the serum to give to everybody, and they could breathe underwater, and the rest is history.
In a way.
Yeah, and then, I mean, there's been so many interpretations of it, but all you need to know is Atlantis is in the Atlantic Ocean. It is part of the Seven Kingdoms, which are underwater. They haven't really fleshed out
Game of Thrones related.
Yeah. They haven't really fleshed out all of the kingdoms or so.
Flushed out. I mean,
what?
Flushed out.
No.
It's another pun. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, so the city of Atlantis, the main city, where you'll see him in comics or where the throne is in Poseidonis, which is really awkward to say. But that's where the throne is. There's a couple other ones like Tridonis, which is where these kind of hippies live. They think that the way, the hippie mer people, they think that their way of living is clean. So therefore they're the best ones.
Yeah, I think a way to think of that too is like, it's like Greek city-states where you have like a big city, the main city, but then, Athens actually had kind of a big empire and stuff like that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you have a couple different ones, like there was Sub Diego, which is part of San Diego that got sunk during, I think it was Infinite Crisis. Spectre had done all this stuff. We'll go into that, but that's all you need to know. There's part of California under in DC.
So Atlantis is underwater.
Yeah.
That's what you need to know.
Yeah, and there's a couple offshoots, but we'll go into those as we explain this character.
And I think also just in reading comics and on to Atlantis a little bit, that's, I think, if you've never read an Aquaman comic, think just underwater Game of Thrones.
Essentially.
Because that's where a lot of it, because it's not just one city and he represents it. It's a bunch of different competing empires that all have like different, and they all have Shakespearean royal drama and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's kind of.
It's very soap opera-y.
So that's the setting.
Comes with royalty.
Yeah.
So like I'll just get into the history a little bit, the Aquaman's basic origin. And I think part of this, like the whole idea of doing a deep dive on a character is just to kind of give you some sense about like what's going on with that character, because especially at DC, Marvel too, they can just get really complex and all this kind of stuff. So, so what's difficult about Aquaman specifically in terms of his history is that he has two competing origins. Sort of one that was his original origin and is the current origin, but there was this entire middle sort of period where he was just a bit different. So originally the idea is that Aquaman is the offspring of an Atlantean princess named Atlana, and that she got together with a lighthouse keeper named Tom Curry. Okay, this is in Amnesty Bay, Maine or whatever. So right away, it's a mixed marriage, right? It's a poor person and a rich person.
It's like Romeo and Juliet.
One from the sea, one from the earth.
So it's like, which I just think is hilarious, because the idea that back in the day, you could just meet somebody, live in a lighthouse with them, have children. So Tom doesn't know. Tom has children with this Atlantean princess, has no idea who she is or what she is.
Did they not talk about that at any point? Like, why were you in the ocean?
Later, there was a big storm, and that's kind of how they meet. He rescues her from a storm. Also, I have no idea why storms really messed her up.
Yeah.
She's from the ocean.
From the ocean. But they get above, and it's lightning. It was scary. She passed out. Maybe she's epileptic, and it was like, so she passed out. So he rescues her. It's like, come to my lighthouse, the only place I live. We'll have children. And then, and so she is then out of the picture, and Tom raises little baby Aquaman. So we've got a few things. Also, one of the reasons that she was an ousted princess, one of the reasons she left in the first place is because she was interested in the surface world.
Very Ariel.
Yeah, Little Mermaid.
This gets Little Mermaid real hard. And as a matter of fact, since that, I didn't realize this before the Disney movie. That's apparently like I never read it when I was a kid, but like a cultural, like what do you call it? Like Hansel and Gretel. What do they call it?
The
fairy
Grimms?
tale. It's a fairy tale, right? Yeah. So I think.
Wait, Aquaman's a fairy tale?
No, Little Mermaid.
Oh,
I think what I'm saying is I think some of this is probably heavily
drawn from the Grimm's fairy tale.
DC likes to take from like mythology and like old fairy tales and stuff.
So right away, a big theme in Aquaman comics: Atlanteans are racist.
Oh no!
Because that's the idea. Is like she was like mixing with like air breathers.
You got pure bloods and mud bloods.
Exactly. So, and the other thing is that means Arthur was a hybrid. And that explains, in this origin, that sort of explains his power. That he's more powerful than all of them because he has the best of both worlds. Super strength because of being an Atlantean, and he got loving sitcoms from. I don't know why the mixing, but he makes him more powerful or whatever. He also got his talking to, or his telepathic communication and commanding sea life from his mom.
I would assume.
They don't really explain too much. I've done a little history or research. They don't really explain too much why she has it. I think there might be a royalty thing.
Yeah,
only they have that ability. But
yeah, I mean, I know magic kind of works in mysterious ways, especially in DC, where like some certain bloodlines only have certain amount of powers, and so
yeah, like parcel tongue. I don't know if fish have tongues.
Oh my gosh.
And then the other thing is, like I said, if I haven't said this already, Aquaman was raised on land in this origin.
Yes. Yeah.
And he sort of slowly discovers his powers. And I think that's the idea is his dad finds him in a puddle of water for an hour or something like that.
He was underwater playing for two hours.
Yeah.
The fact that his dad knew he was playing for 2 hours under the water, he was not a good parent.
No, I think the idea is he didn't know where he was. And
for 2 hours.
Discovered him. Yeah, well, he was drinking.
Oh my gosh.
The lighthouse gets boring. Like, go play in the water. So he discovers that he's got the powers and everything like that. Okay. So our second major origin is very different. I don't know if I like it better, but it's got some cool parts. So in this case, it turns out that he's not a half-breed in this origin. Oren, he never gets the name, or he doesn't get the name Arthur yet. He is the offspring of, again, Atlanta, and now Atlan, another sort of Atlantean royal, which, by the way, their names, I don't know why they all have to have names that derive from the city they're at or whatever. That's like if it was Austin, they're like, he's Austino and she's Austinia or something. So it doesn't make any sense. But he has blonde hair, and that to the Atlanteans makes him a freak. So
mean.
Well, yeah.
They're racist even against
racist
their own?
and ableist.
Oh my gosh.
Deeply so. Apparently, there's some sort of like future prophecy that the blonde-headed people are evil or whatever, something like that.
Oh God!
There's a deep cut. There's a character later on named Cordax, or he's an ancestor. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so they do what any responsible parents would do if they had a disabled child. They took him to a reef and said, I hope you don't die, and they abandoned him on Mercy Reef, which is ironically named.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So they just assumed our disgusting with this blonde hair, gross baby. Here, I guess you're just gonna die of being eaten by
what?
Barracudas and turtles.
Both origins, terrible parents.
Absolutely. Well, no, in this case, both parents are awful. And before, but anyway, so it turns out, luckily, no, this gets real good, guys. His telepathy, she didn't know he had. Right, because she said he's got blonde hair. He probably doesn't have anything good going on.
Evil, Antichrist baby.
Evil. He uses his powers to instinctively fend off evil or predatory sea life, and because he can communicate with them, he allows himself to be raised by dolphins.
What?
So this is true. So Aquaman is raised by dolphins in this origin. And he kind of becomes this kind of like feral child, and he lives amongst the water and waves, and he's raised. Go ahead.
I can't see. Whenever you think of like ocean, I don't think feral, but to think of a feral child in the ocean
water
being raised by dolphins.
But instead of a wolf, that growls, he would just or whatever you do that noise.
Oh God.
I'm not a soprano, so I can't really do it good. So, and this whole time he's naked. He's naked.
So when did they change that origin?
So this is post-Crisis. So we talked about Crisis on Infinite Earths on the show beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure because, as we said before, that whole story was meant to like bring together a bunch of timelines. In this case, I think they also took the occasion to sort of just rewrite some stuff. I think when they originally wrote a lot of these characters in the 40s and the 50s, they didn't know that they were going to last for 30 or 40 years. Mm-hmm. So some writers took that as an occasion to sort of streamline stuff, rewrite, modernize, what have you. So this was one of those attempts to sort of modernize him or whatever. And anyway, so he's a feral naked kid with his powers, floating around the oceans, being raised by turtles, and he starts flirting
turtles
or whatever. Probably a lot. Well, they're older. obviously, and they, he's
the turtles are the grandparents.
Exactly. He's and they have the best weed. Obviously, they have
my God.
Anyway, so he's communing with nature, and he starts flirting a little bit more with the shore, and he meets, and this is the very Little Mermaid aspect. He meets Tom Curry.
So his adoptive father. In this one.
And exactly. And Tom Curry knocks him out. That's true.
Oh my God.
Because they kind of just keep, it's very...
Was he speaking dolphin to him coming out of the water?
It's very E.T., like he's leaving him,
Reese's.
like Reese's Pieces or whatever to get him into his kitchen.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is kind of true. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but point is that they finally learn to communicate, and he raises he raises Orin, who actually doesn't have a name or language, himself.
So, I mean, I guess it makes sense that he doesn't know English.
Yeah.
So when Tom finds him, so is he...
He's just making noises.
Yeah. It's like Nell. Have you seen Nell? Where it's like that Jodie Foster plays the girl who who was severely neglected, and Liam Neeson finds her, and she made up her own twin language because she had a twin. So the whole thing's like, Tay in the wee. I'm a Tay in the wee. So Aquaman was doing that, I assume. And Arthur Curry, Tom Curry, his dad takes deep pity on him because of that, and he raises him. And that's the point. And so, I should say Arthur Curry is also very long-lived, and Tom eventually dies, and he leaves him the one thing he can, which is a name, which is actually apparently his name, Arthur Curry. I don't know if it was like Arthur Tom Curry or something like that. So that's the origin. And in both cases, both origins, Aquaman has to discover Atlantis.
Yeah.
Right. Because the Atlanteans neglected him in the first one. And then in this one, it's very sad. He gets taken prisoner when he goes back, and his outfit, his orange tunic and everything, that's actually a prison uniform.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's I think, that's basically Aquaman's origin. And in both cases, now Rebirth, they've kind of re-embraced the first one.
Yes.
Which is that he's a half-breed and stuff like that. Out of curiosity, which one do you guys like better?
I don't like the abandonment on the reef.
On the reef
That's really weird. Even for comic standards, like that.
It is weird.
Because it just, I like his relationship, or kind of him finding his relationship with his lineage. Mm-hmm. I don't like the whole idea of them abandoning him and then he's still gonna go defend Atlantis.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know.
I think both seem very fairy tale-esque, yes. Right? But the first one seems very Disney fairy tale, and the second one seems very Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah. I agree.
So, I mean, I kind of like the romantic aspect of both of them, but I would have to go with the first one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of abandonment stuff in Aquaman comics generally. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about it later with some of the other characters, but that happens quite a bit. Yeah. And one of the things I like in both origins, and I think it's pretty cool, is that Aquaman has a pretty mixed relationship with Atlantis. He's not just or I guess there have been some iterations where he has been a bit of just their king and always there. But for most of his history, he's sort of been a outcast who doesn't belong in either world. Well,
so Atlantean lifespans, are they longer than?
It's not clear, but it seems like it. Because he certainly is.
At least to a certain age, they kind of slow down a bit, because there's a few stories where he kind of stopped aging and his father keeps aging, and he ends up eventually dying. So, but Arthur's still not as old as he would have been if his father died. So
and it's complicated too, because it's a lot like Asgard, where we talked about that a little bit on the show. Is that it's a futuristic society that's also heavily involved in magic. Yeah. So there's all these sort of loopholes and stuff for why crazy shit happens. Yeah. And in that case.
Yeah, and one of the things I liked when they kind of redid the origin, or at least the most recent one, was they reversed kind of the first origin that you were talking about, where he saved his mom. I liked how they flipped it, where she saved Aquaman's father, because it just makes more sense.
She is the Atlantean.
Yeah, she's much more well versed in the water than he is.
Thanksgiving just happened, and it sort of reminds me of the bad story of Thanksgiving, where we, like, and when I say we, I mean white Europeans, allowed the Indians to eat with us at our day instead of like, we were going to starve. And they were like, maybe you should eat corn.
Maybe we should take pity on them.
Yeah. So similarly, the Atlantean didn't drown. And then need a air breather to save her or something.
Well, I feel like as a warning going forward, we're about to do the deep dive, obviously, on like the separate like supporting cast characters. Is that like Aquaman has been canceled and redone so many times since his origin that all of the individual characters, not just Aquaman himself, have gone through like so many changes.
That's true.
I feel like he's one of those characters, especially with DC. I think they're just starting to figure him out. Like, I feel like some of his supporting characters have been figured out and they kind of change him a little bit. Sure. But, like, they've always kind of have a through line. But with Aquaman, it's never been certainly clear. Like,
I would say it's been about since, like, the 90s that they've been taking him very, very seriously. Yeah. And his characters. Yeah,
a lot of it is just this attempt to make him interesting and cool and go against that Super Friends idea.
In a post-Super Friends world.
Yeah. I think this might be a good time to talk about it. Just the idea of, in the 90s, there was a complete revamping of Aquaman. And very much the way you're talking about, where they re-released, it's Peter David, in this case, was the writer, re-released thing, and they gave him long hair, a beard, took his hand away, gave him a hook. He's going to go through different hand iterations.
Drastically different ones.
Gave him kind of an armored look. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you brought up like his hand being taken away. I think how he lost his hand is really cool. Yeah. Because his ability to see, I'm doing it too. Yeah. His ability to kind of manipulate fish or marine life was taken away. And so this villain puts his hand in water.
Charybdis is the villain.
Yeah, Charybdis. Yeah. He puts his hand in the water with all these piranhas, and he's just let it, like, his hand gets eaten by piranhas, and he can't tell them to stop.
I assume they're super piranhas, since he can take a bullet from an AK-47.
It's true.
But fish teeth.
What are those teeth made of?
Yeah, I think, so it's cool, like, the idea of him taking away the powers and it being used against him, but it's also, you didn't take away his, like, super strength or anything.
Yeah. So why is this working?
I haven't read that story in a long time, so I would have, maybe they did account for these details.
Sure, I'm sure they didn't, but...
There was this one story when Orm got a piece of his hand, like a bone, and he used it to cast a spell, and I'm like, this is so dark and creepy. Yeah.
But it is funny, though. So there's this reputation or this, like, background context of Aquaman not being cool, and then the subsequent need that the editors and the writers have felt to sort of do some little extra cool.
They kind of overcorrected.
Yeah. So in the 90s, they think, well, he needs more shoulder pads and spikes.
Yep. Yeah, and they also gave him. So you said they gave him armor, but the armor he had was only on the upper right of his arm.
Asymmetrical. Yeah,
but it was just his boob. His boob, shoulder, and arm. It's like, what is that gonna do?
You don't want to lose a boob in battle.
Just the right one. The left one I don't like.
He had a hook for a while. Then he had a cybernetic hook that he could shoot out and had a retractable claw.
A harpoon.
A harpoon.
Basically.
That's what it was. A harpoon the whole time. I just said hook, which I almost want to defend it a little bit, because I think that it, in its own way, it looks cool, and it's an interesting character design because it's, it's like going with the pirate thing and the harpoon thing.
I always
makes a certain amount of sense.
I always see that Aquaman, because they adapted him in the Justice League TV show as well, and I always see that Aquaman as kind of I don't want to say kind of asshole Aquaman. Like,
he's the Wolverine of the Justice.
Yeah, I mean, he was very much like, I don't care what's going on with you surface dwellers. Yeah. Like, it's about the Atlanteans.
I mean, like, objectively, it's a cool design, but I feel like there's only so much you can do to change a character before they're no longer that character.
Yeah.
So, I feel like they overcorrected, and that's kind of unrecognizable as Aquaman. So.
And we're still in this period, so it's hard to say what's right, but I have to say, Jeff Johns, when he brought Aquaman back in the New 52, it's a completely re-embraces the original Aquaman in almost every way, and all the major things. And it's one of the coolest iterations of the character. So I think that speaks to your point that you don't really have to overcorrect. Yeah. You just have to write the damn thing well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like what he did in that run in the New 52, because in the first, I believe it's the first issue, he goes to a restaurant or a bar after scuffling with all these people on the dock, and he orders fish and chips. And this random customer behind him is like, you can't order fish and chips. And he's like, why? And he's like, don't you talk to fish? And he's like, I don't talk to fish.
Yeah,
and their brains are too rudimentary to have a conversation.
Yeah, but also it's funny too, because what do you think Atlanteans eat?
Yeah.
I mean, they're in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, of course they eat fish.
It was an interesting piece of writing too, because that character, he's I think a reporter.
Yeah, something like that.
And he kind of ends up being a voice for like skeptical fans or people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's smart writing.
I like how he used like all this kind of bullshit that people say about Aquaman in these like few panels to kind of just push it aside.
Yeah.
And be like, no.
Like, you're ridiculous. Moving on.
Yeah. And as an Aquaman fan and just a comic fan in general, I just want to have the attitude of like, no, you don't know what he does. He is awesome. He's like only in like, I don't know, this kind of like situation, because you have a character who can lift a mountain, is bulletproof. Like, well, you can't do anything. Well, okay. Well,
yeah. I mean, that's always the constant struggle with fans and non-fans, or even among fans that don't really know anything about something they're deciding to talk about. I mean, Aquaman is always a prime example of that. I mean, you say, oh, I like this character. Oh, he can't do anything. It's like, well, I mean, do I have to defend this? Like, I mean, there's years of history. Just go read it. Like, why do I have to be the voice of it?
He's a character who the difference between what fans think versus casual audience members or something like that, where there's the most difference.
Yeah. All right. And now to the part I was really looking forward to.
Who are you going to be discussing with us today, Noah?
So I feel like we should talk about kind of his ensemble, Aquaman's supporting characters and people that also help make him who he is, or drive whatever he's doing. Anyway,
because any character,
any
character is like their world,
exactly.
Right? All the relationships and stuff.
And I think we should start off with his lovely wife, Mira.
the character that basically that's what this episode is for Noah.
Yeah, an excuse to talk about Mira.
I was talking to them, and I like Aquaman. He's a fine character. He's a great Justice League member. But the thing about Aquaman I like the most is
his wife.
Because I think she's so cool. I as a character and as a supporting character, and she can definitely hold her own. I mean, who do you think's running Atlantis when he's not there saving
with Justice League stuff?
Yeah, I mean,
depending on the story, just straight up running Atlantis.
Yeah, exactly. So to kind of get into her little history a little bit, so she's from Zebul. And Zebul is they were the separatists of Atlantis. When Atlantis fell and everything, they kind of went on to their own. They formed their own little colony, or penal colony, as you would say. And I'll kind of focus on the Secret Origins part, the New 52. It's more streamlined. So Zebul is located in the Bermuda Triangle, which is technically it's another dimension still.
Well, in real life, it's just a place.
Yeah. But Zebul's in the Bermuda Triangle, but they can't escape. So the people that live in Zebul, they can't leave Zebul at all, except for Mira. She's the one that's able to escape. Her mother died when she was young, and her father just helped her escape. She slipped through like a slipstream or something like that. It was the weakest point in the barrier. So anyway, she gets out of there, and the first thing she does, her whole mission was to kill the king of Atlantis, because remember, these are all separatists and they didn't like the monarchy and all that stuff. So her first thing was to kill the king of Atlantis. So who's the king of Atlantis now? It's Aquaman. So the first encounter she has with him is he's saving these orcas. So that doesn't really seem like a bad guy.
Yeah.
So instead of like just going out and murdering him, she's like, who are you? Like,
maybe I'll watch.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch. And then she kind of sees that he's a good guy and everything. And she has this message from her mother that she was supposed to play when she left Zebul. And essentially it tells her, hey, get out of Zebul. You'll be married into something. You'll be put to work. You won't have a life. Go find a life. So that's pretty much her origin. So
because the Zebellians are a bunch of misogynistic,
they're
warrior like Klingon assholes.
Yeah, right. they're not the best people, and so it's really cool to see like Mira came from there, and she's definitely not of her people. But one of her standout things, and I'll kind of go into her powers now, is she has aquakinesis, which is she can control water, any form of it. She can manipulate it in any way, which I think is really cool. And then she has all the other powers that Aquaman has. So that just makes her a formidable foe to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has all the powers that Aquaman has, with the exception of talking to fish.
Not just fish.
Yeah. Not just fish. But yeah, her aquakinesis, hydrokinesis, whatever you want to call it, is her big standout power, and she uses it really well. There's this really cool moment in the New 52 where I believe she's fighting cops or something like that, surface dwellers, if you will. And they say something along the lines of like, "Oh, what are you going to do? You're out of water." And she said, "The absence of water isn't my weakness, it's yours." So I think that's really cool. It's a really cool quote by her.
Oh, I would say one thing, because she definitely got from Zebel, is away from the aquakinesis, which is kind of vague, but it's supposed to be just the royal family, right? Mm-hmm. It has that power. Also, attitude. She got that attitude.
Yeah, she's very, I wouldn't say stubborn. She's very passionate, and she's all for the Atlanteans, or, you know, people in the ocean. There's this really cool thing that Aquaman does, and he has to do, is he's a diplomat. You know, he has to represent land and sea. Mm-hmm. And Mira is very much of the sea, strictly. So she's always going to have the Atlanteans, or the people in the ocean's best interest at heart. And that's kind of what Rebirth goes into. The whole starting point of it is they make this embassy, and Mira and Aquaman are the heads of it. They're ambassadors for both sides. And of course that goes awry because Black Manta of all people. You know?
Surprise!
Yeah. And, you know, Mara is very much wants to be like, we need to go to war with these people because they just did that. And Aquaman kind of convinces her like, hey, you know, just go talk to him. So there's a really cool exchange of her being like on land talking to this government official. And I don't know, it's really cool.
Like that they've subdued that a little bit in the last like 10 years or so, because there have been Mira moments in the past where she just goes crazy because she's just a crazy girl.
Oh my gosh.
That's been kind of their attitude.
Well, she's not crazy. She's always going to defend Atlantis.
She has that fiery red hair, so she has that fiery spirit to match.
I just mean in the 60s and 70s, guys would write women like they were insane.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Emotionally unstable.
Like there'll be some disaster and Aquaman's like, I've got to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And use my powers of manly stoicism. And then she's just like eating her own hair and going crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's too
well,
much.
modern Mira,
yes.
I like. I feel like established relationships in comics don't happen a lot. It's mostly the will they, won't they, and then they do, and then they break up, and then they're back together, but they still love each other, and you know, like it's very complicated. But I feel like for the most part, like the romantic aspect, the marriage between Aquaman and Mira is always just very like loving.
Yeah, and it's always there.
Exactly.
It's a huge shoulder for him to lean on a lot, I mean, especially when he has issues with the monarchy and the Atlantean rules of blah, blah, blah. And she's always the one to kind of help guide him through that.
Yeah. Like I feel the relationship just works and it's a healthy like example of a good relationship.
And I think it's because they're equals.
Yeah.
Too. Which is pretty rare. I mean, like just power wise, I guess Aquaman's maybe more because he's stronger or something like that, but like they're really comparable and there aren't too many couples that I would, you know, I mean,
they're the definition of a power couple.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even though, like, because you could see her super strength and, like, her ability to do things a lot, but she does use that hydrokinesis because she has it, and that separates her from Aquaman. But that just they can use each other really well, and he respects her immensely. And I think that's something that you don't necessarily see a lot, because you even just said something about the relationships. I think that's another dynamic that is missing a lot, because you always have these supers, and then they're kind of human, non-super counterparts.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, you stand aside and let me do this. But Mira's like, no, you stand aside and let me do this.
Yeah,
So,
like,
I can only think of one other couple, which is maybe Green Arrow and Black Canary.
They're cool too. I really like them.
Where Black Canary might be the more
for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
of the two. Because usually it's, even if the other character, like, so Thor and Sif, if that's a couple, Thor and Jane, obviously Jane has no powers or whatever.
Yeah.
Even Sif is like, you know, just a regular Asgardian or something like that. Like Superman and Lois, Damselly. Yeah. I think Arthur and Mira might be the only one I can think of.
I mean, I like their relationship a lot. And I think that it's not just like an added thing to their history or their biography. It's something that makes them as two characters better. So I like that.
And she also might be one of very few female or just like significant others that sustained her own miniseries. So she's at least popular enough and powerful enough that like people have expressed enough interest that she recently had 5 issues miniseries. So that's cool.
Yeah. And then one thing, I don't think I mentioned it with Aquaman, but kind of all Atlanteans, it was more seen prior, like back when they used to write them, but kind of recently. So their only weakness per se is water deprivation. So they do need to return to the water at some point because their abilities and everything kind of weaken a little bit. Same thing with Mira. Like she needs to get her feet wet at some point to kind of gain that strength back. It's just like Superman, like if he's away from.
Well, does it have to be the ocean or?
I don't think it's necessarily clear. I think it's just water in general.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but that's something that you should think about. And then one thing that I think it kind of goes to the whole continuity mess of a lot of comics, but a cool little fact or something that not many people might know is that Mira and Aquaman, they had a miscarriage. You know, she was pregnant, and she had a miscarriage. And I'm not saying like, oh, does that matter? But it's such a testament to their relationship and Mira and Aquaman and how they interact with each other. Cause that can make or break a marriage for sure.
Yeah.
But like to know that had happened to them. I mean, I won't get into the logistics of it and what happened exactly, but the fact that she did have a miscarriage, but their marriage is still strong and everything. Like, I just think it's really cool. And I don't know if it still matters now. Like, it's really hard to tell.
You don't know
like,
if it still is like accurate in continuity.
Because obviously he doesn't have a hook for a hand.
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
Did
Is that why
happen?
there was a miscarriage?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Well, look, here's the thing. People, to be fair, when Aquaman was put on Mercy Reef to be left for dead, they told everybody, this is true, they told everybody that he was a miscarriage. So maybe Mira just abandoned that baby on a reef and it will become a super, this is a good story, super powerful. Okay.
Yeah, so that is Mira. I love her so much. Can't wait to see her in the movie. But now on to the other one.
Aquaman is a DC character.
Yes.
And DC, well, I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
And DC characters have sidekicks. So Aquaman is a sidekick. And that character is
Dolphins.
Little Aquaman. No, it's Aqualad.
I love Aqualad.
Aqualad's great. Now there's a couple of them. So you got 2 Aqualads. I'm going to talk a little bit about both.
Okay.
I'm going to be brief. Okay. So the first Aqualad is Garth. His name is just Garth. We looked this up. There's no other name. It was before Wayne's World, so it's just that. I guess that sounded like a good name to have, or whatever. And
that's like a Cher or Madonna. Just Garth.
So the original Aqualad comes from another city, a city by the Idealists. It's just they're called the Idealists because they were pacifists. They were an offshoot of Atlantis. But they're very similar to normal Atlanteans, and you'll see why. They're master sorcerers. His dad was a sorcerer, but for various reasons, when they find out that their son, their new little baby, has purple eyes, which is considered a deformity.
Oh my god!
What do you two think they do with that baby?
Do they abandon him on a
They
reef?
abandon the shit out of that baby. Now,
oh my god!
Now, I do want to say that he had purple eyes, and in their defense, if you meet a baby with purple eyes, you abandon that child. That's my advice, just
I
because
assume they're Targaryens.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Dragons come soon.
Yeah, where are the eggs? Of the
well, that's the
dragons?
thing. Obviously, negative.
Atlanteans are the worst.
But I looked, but I couldn't find. So he's abandoned, but somehow makes it. I guess he uses his ability to talk to fish. Because that's the other thing. Garth ends up being just basically like little Aquaman.
Okay. Like he has all of his powers?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's sort of what it seems like all the DC sidekicks did was just have like a little version.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Usually more like spunky and spry.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're weaker and more annoying. Right. Excellent. You will help me find crime. So eventually Aquaman would become Tempest. Not just in the replacement of the new Aquaman, which we'll get into later, but just as the evolution of the character sort of happened, and apparently this is interesting to me, Garth, aka Aqualad, was the last of the sidekicks to become his own thing. He would become Tempest, but what's interesting is that he becomes way different. So he's a huge departure. So rather than just a normal sort of like dark-headed, purple-eyed little Aquaman, he becomes, the writers tap into that magical background, and he becomes this sorcerer.
That's cool.
Yeah, so his main thing is he can control the temperature of water.
Okay.
So he can make
That's
boiling water or
terrifying.
freezing stuff. It really
That
is
is
at a high scale.
scary.
Yeah.
And he has he shoots purple magical beams out of his eyes. I so on the nose.
What aquatic creature can do that?
Well, that's a good.
Okay,
probably the
well.
mantis shrimp, if I had to guess. But I just think it's funny. That's like it's one of the things he's known for. With the purple eyes,
Basically
They're
laser
like,
vision.
We'll give him purple as a callback.
Yeah, not the ability to control water and you know breathe and swim really fast, but let's just have lasers too.
Exactly. Well, I think it's like mages in comics usually shoot beams of magical energy, so they just like let it come out of his eyes. Remember, he's got purple eyes. It's great. And then all the other normal mage stuff like astral projection and summoning demons and all that cool stuff. Whatever. So that's basically Aqualad. The first one, Garth. More recently, since Young Justice came out, Calder, Calderam, if you will, or also Jonathan Hyde was his name. So here's
his alias, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a cool thing about his history. It's sort of unprecedented just in the multimedia facet. So what happened was, apparently Young Justice, when Young Justice was being made, they create this new Aquaman, which is this Calder character. And Jeff Johns saw that, I guess before it was released, and was so taken with the character, he was writing Brightest Day at the time, and he decided to put that character in the comic.
So he was like, "This design is awesome."
He loved it. So and I think Garth had been Tempest for so long, so Aqualad was kind of missing.
Yeah.
So what's just crazy about that though is that even though he was created first in the show, the cartoon show, he appears in the comic first. Because it's way faster to do a kind of comic thing or whatever.
Especially when you're in the middle of
So
writing
he saw
it.
like the concept art before the show was even dropped.
Oh, I meant to say this too about Garth. He was also a founding member of the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
So Garth was a Teen Titan.
I mentioned that in my Teen Titans little spiel.
Exactly. So in this case, Calder's got a different history. Calder, and I have to say, in researching this character, I'm mostly because he appears right before New 52 and Rebirth. He was in Young Justice, the cartoon show. He has like 4 different origins. So it's a bit convoluted.
As they do.
Yes. But I'll just do the latest one. I think since Rebirth happened, what we're probably going to stick with, he's the son of Black Manta, and not just an Atlantean, but like Mira, a Zibellian. So he has aquakinesis as well as a bunch of Atlantean traits and electrical blasts. And nobody fucking knows why. He's just asshole.
Well, I think it's just like Garth when he shoots lasers out of his eyes.
Okay.
Well, that was just part of the sorcery. That was like part of that. But the other thing is a relatively new character, and there's still a lot of mystery around him. But that's the general idea: is that he was a Zibellian character, and his mom, who was from Zebel, was hiding from his father, Black Manta, because he's terrifying. And she had the location to this particular MacGuffin that could control the entire ocean. She didn't want Black Manta to get it, and she specifically didn't want Black Manta to have access or get to Calder. So she moved to New Mexico, the least oceanic of places. And so he slowly discovered his powers, and also became gay.
Yeah.
That's another thing about Calder.
He didn't become gay. He was always gay.
Even before he was created, he was gay. Well, no, but it did feel like that seems to be a thing they do with comics now. It's like they like cool characters who still aren't like the main characters, but cool ones are like, they're also gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a little anecdote here. Like I didn't necessarily like it when they made Green Lantern, the original Green Lantern,
Alan
gay.
Scott,
Yeah, Alan Scott. I was like, come on. Like, I mean,
it's a Dumbledore move.
Yeah.
It's pulling a Dumbledore.
yeah, it's a little pandery.
Yeah.
But He's new enough to where it's like,
Yeah.
if you stick with that, that's fine. Just don't make him all of a sudden be like, nope, I like girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Then that would be weird.
I should say he's got the hydrokinesis / aquakinesis or whatever, but it's not as powerful as Mira's.
No, he just makes like swords and stuff, right? Like that's his main.
He's just not particularly focused because he can do other shapes and stuff. As a matter of fact, like in his first sort of appearance in Rebirth, he kind of is moving water around the room like a snake. Mm-hmm. So and it's connected to his Zebellian heritage. Now they don't explain why he has it because originally it was just Zebellian's royalty, but his mom either. They haven't said she was, or maybe all Zebellians do a little bit, but only the royals
have it
are
really,
really powerful.
It seems like the people that are mixed with Atlanteans and humans tend to have more variety and stronger powers.
It could be that too. Hybridization, which I like, by the way. Just the idea of like...
Yeah, I mean, out of both of them, it's funny because both of them seem like a cool mix between Aquaman and Mira. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's like this weird little love child of theirs.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, yeah, so we got kind of the supporting characters done, the good guys. But what is a superhero without their villains?
Super villains.
Hold on real quick, just Kayla's good guy laugh. It was like, ha ha ha. Very Dudley Do Right.
I don't really have a good bad guy laugh, so I try.
You're always a good guy.
It's my favorite. Yeah. But yes, so looking at Aquaman's villains, two really stand out. So we'll start with Black Manta because he's so cool.
He is.
I
love
the
way
his
he looks.
look. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? Okay, but you were making fun of laser eyes, and I'm like, come on. You know I'm talking about Black Manta, and I know you love him.
But he's not from the ocean, and for some reason can shoot lasers out of his eyes. But Black Manta is really cool.
Well, and for the longest time, his origin story was kind of ambiguous. Like, they didn't on purpose. Like, people didn't even know that he was black for the longest time because he was always seen in costume. And so they didn't know like his origin story. He was just this creepy villain, kind of Joker-esque that came out of chaos and just like wreaking havoc.
It came out of the depths of the ocean.
But it wasn't until 1993, Aquaman #6, that like they kind of attempted to give it more character. But several different origin stories, as we've said, have happened to Black Manta.
As they always do.
One of the first ones was he was kind of kidnapped to work on this like basically slave ship. And one day he is in the ocean and he sees Aquaman like talking to his dolphin friends. Literally, he's just like talking to his dolphin friends passing by in the ocean, and like a Black Manta is trying to signal for help. Aquaman doesn't see him, and then because he felt, I guess, jaded or ignored, he was like, I hate the ocean and everything that comes from it forever.
Can I just say I get it?
What?
If I was like shipwrecked and there was a superhero, and I was like, "Save me!" And he was like, "Hold on, I'm going to play with these dolphins." I'd be like,
"He didn't see him."
Yeah, I mean
but he didn't know, or did he know?
I think he knew. Like, it was obvious that he didn't like look his way.
Yeah, why would Aquaman just ignore this child that's being held prisoner on a boat?
Yeah,
he's busy. Have you ever swam with dolphins? It's distracting.
Did you not? So the powers I listed were super senses.
Yeah, but Black Manta didn't know that. He won't donate to our Patreon. But I think it was just he was upset because he's like, I'm on this island and you're playing grab ass with a bunch of dolphins. He's probably upset.
Oh, but yeah. So that was like one of the first origin stories.
Not my favorite.
No, one of his most recent one, which is just really heartbreaking. Is he was this autistic orphan who was thrown into Arkham Asylum and experimented on. And he was like nice, but these experiments he lost part of himself.
It made him insane.
Yeah.
He wasn't insane when he went in there.
But it was something like he was only feeling okay when he was in water.
Yeah. It was, he felt comforted when he was in cold water.
Yeah.
But like the touch of soft things like his sheets, like the cotton sheets, just like he drove him crazy.
It's definitely one of the most heartbreaking kind of villain origins.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't like I'm evil, I hate this person for a reason. It was just like he was a really troubled kid who was thrown into probably the worst place you could throw troubled kids. Surrounded
cold water.
But surrounded by Batman's rogue gallery, that can't be good for anyone's mental state.
No.
If I was in the water and somebody started asking me riddles, telling me jokes, and hit me with an umbrella, I'd be so mad.
But yeah, he eventually engineers that suit, his classic suit. One of his ruling philosophies is that because Black people were basically like treated like dirt and enslaved on Earth, that he was trying to make the ocean for them, like take it over, make it a place that they would feel safe. He's, again, involved in a lot of sciencey stuff because he engineers kind of like water breathers to try to,
bring those people to the ocean. And
yeah,
stuff,
yeah, exactly. But Black Manta is kind of the main Aquaman villain, I would say.
I'd say so too. I mean,
Especially
always,
visually.
Yeah,
Like,
especially
the
visually.
look is so cool.
Yeah. He's always the one invading Atlantis or, foiling plots in the ocean, and Aquaman has to stop
in
it.
some comics, I know that Jared said this is like no longer relevant, but he had killed Arthur Jr. in one of the continuities, so he killed Aquaman's son.
Yeah.
I think currently they've killed each other's fathers, and that's why they are at war, hating each other.
Yeah, which I think is their history alone, I mean, just makes him definitely his arch enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, kill the son, Aquaman kills his father, Black Manta kills his father.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, whoa, stop with the killing.
Again, like Jared had said, very Shakespearean drama going on under the sea here.
Yeah, I think so. It's, if I got the order correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, Black Manta kills Aquaman's dad. Aquaman goes to get revenge, but accidentally kills Black Manta's dad.
Yeah.
Because they wear similar suits or something to that effect. And then they're like, oh, I hate you so much.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and so to make that clear, like Aquaman didn't mean to kill his father. So I don't know if he necessarily meant to kill Black Manta, but it wasn't Black Manta.
Yeah.
So.
If I would have to go back, but I think they were like smugglers or pirates or something like that, and that's why.
Well, that Black Manta is.
Yeah.
That's one of the things he does. That's how he makes that money.
That's how he funds his supervillain operations.
And he's just become, and let me know what you guys think, but like one of the most like ruthless villain. Like
he's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within Forever Evil, we talked about before, he scares me way more than anybody else.
He's like Lex without any sympathy that Lex has.
Yeah.
He's just very much like, this is my goal. I don't care. I will get it done. Yeah, he's terrifying. I'm really excited to see him in the movie.
Me too.
The suit alone, how they did it.
It looks awesome.
Holy crap.
And sometimes when characters go away from the concept, like something about them doesn't make sense, I don't like that. But in this case, he's like, I'm going to be a manta. And how do I complete that? Laser beams.
There's a part where he's like, he becomes a manta human hybrid in comics
that's true.
too, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go down that road just to know that road was a cul-de-sac, and you got to turn around.
Yes.
But I just think it's so random that he's known for these destructive red eye beams.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with being a manta.
Nope.
It's nothing, but it's so cool.
Yep.
He just wanted to call back to the
Iconic.
ocean. Yeah.
But as cool as Black Manta is, he is actually not my favorite Aquaman villain. God. It's because I'm a sucker for that family drama.
I knew it.
We're going to be talking about Orm. Again, his origin story has, oh my God, it's so complicated doing research about characters, guys.
Real quick. Orm, a.k.a.
Oh, Ocean Master.
Ocean Master.
I'm on a first name basis. I'm
That's,
sorry. I don't know him by his criminal mastermind identity. But yeah, his very first introduction to comics, he was fully human. So he kind of really resented Arthur for that purpose. So he's like a super jealous. He becomes like a petty criminal, loses his like memories, and becomes an even worse criminal. So already not a great guy.
So deep down, he's just an awful person.
In his original origin story, yep. He comes back with his memories. I think his name then is like Orm Marius. And that's when he becomes Ocean Master. Pirate, ransacks innocent
as you do
ships.
on the ocean.
Yep. He also uses like natural disasters because he doesn't have those powers naturally. He has to like create the suits that have them. And he creates natural disasters and holds like coastal cities hostage. blackmail, as they do.
I mean, that's what they did in the Thrones of Atlantis. That storyline, which is great. And then he creates this big cataclysmic tsunami. Yeah.
Jeff Johns just cleans stuff up really well. So I think his powers come from, he's Atlantean, so he's like just hardy and almost as strong as Aquaman, somewhere in there. But he's got the trident, which gives him the power for the storm, and the helmet, which gives him the power to control the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's just cool that it's like, okay, no more like vague, magically, is he kind of a wizard? It's like he's got these 2 items, they give him these big powers. Bam, let's do it.
Yeah, to like super magnify what he can already do.
Yeah.
Because his next origin story comes from Peter David. And that's when he's the son of like Altana and a wizard from Atlantis.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, he's magic too.
Yeah. More magic.
Yeah. And then his newest one in 52, it's like Altana and a guard. And then Aquaman.
Ooh, saucy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But Aquaman's not there anymore. Like, so Orm is like, I guess I'll rule now. He's the rightful heir.
Yeah.
And then when Aquaman kind of discovers who he is, comes to Atlantis, Volko is like, take the throne back. Take it from your brother. And he's like, I mean, he seems to be doing okay. He's not a terrible person.
That's a good point. That's a good thing to point out, too, because now it's his half-brother.
Yeah.
So they're related.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, which makes him the rightful heir to the throne, but also kind of fucked up that Volko's like, hey, go take it back. You haven't been here ever.
Volko was trying to get Aquaman to attack Orm like so many times for so many different reasons. Like, he killed your parents, he stole the trident, and Orm is like, prove it.
Yeah.
And he can't. So Volko was like, and just runs away.
We should say real quick, I was going to mention him briefly. Volko is a Atlantean, usually a senator or a statesman or something like that.
He's like a mentor.
And is usually, and this, I don't want to spoil this, but he does something absolutely awful in New 52. You should really check it out. But yeah, he's usually pro Arthur. That's the idea.
Yeah. He thinks Arthur's like the rightful heir.
Yeah.
But
which
Arthur,
technically I think he is.
He is. I think he's
first.
older. Yeah. But he's like, Orm seems to be doing a good job. I see no reason to randomly usurp my brother. So I guess, yet again, besides the family drama, new Orm kind of reminds me reminiscent of Loki and Thor, like the relationship between the brothers, which I find more compelling.
In a certain way, I think Orm is like, if you're from Atlantis, he's a good guy in a sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and the thing is, Arthur has abandoned the throne and abdicated so many times.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, we give him hero credit and he has good reasons and stuff, but just from a like
Atlantean standpoint, it's like, this king keeps abandoning us.
From a political standpoint, yeah, it's like if a president like quit 4 times, we'd be like, yeah, I don't think we gotta elect him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true, and that's kind of why the conflict starts, because you have Orm that's the king now, like he's been there, and then Aquaman kind of comes in and is like, right, that's my seat.
Yeah.
But Orm's kind of like, hey, you haven't, 1, been here.
Where were you?
Yeah. 2, you don't always have the best interests at heart for the Atlanteans, and that's kind of what causes the rift between them. So then you have, it's this weird thing with that villain where it's like, I can kind of side with Orm
sometimes, yeah,
until he does terrible things, like hold cities hostages.
Jared brings up a good point in terms of like Orm is very much concerned with the future of Atlantis, but he really doesn't care about the people on the surface.
No,
he has no qualms about killing them, holding them hostage
to a psychotic degree.
Yeah.
And we had touched on how Black Manta looks cool. Orm looks cool.
Oh, Ocean Master's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be played by Patrick Wilson. I freaking love Patrick Wilson, so I'm excited for Orm, too.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I do love how Aquaman has these 2 villains that they're just sort of both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
One's this very understandable, if however he goes too far, sort of sympathetic villain. The other one is just, I mean, at this point, just a crazy evil, unapologetically evil dude.
It's kind of the difference between like chaotic evil, lawful evil almost.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's really scary.
But yes, Orm is cool. I love him.
I think that's enough deep diving. Aquaman. At least we scratched the surface, I feel like.
It's hard to do a deep dive because there's so much history.
Yeah, literally the depths of the ocean with this character. So I think kind of changing it up since we're doing a different type of episodes focused on a single character. We should probably do like best moments.
Sure.
Or what you kind of in comics or what you've seen you really like that kind of draws people's attention to them. Jared, do you have any?
Yeah. And I do.
Oh, do tell.
Moving on.
No, but just, I guess, continuing this thing about Aquaman is awesome. And if you don't believe me, shut up. There's a really cool moment in Earth 2, which I believe was written by Grant Morrison and drawn by Frank Quietly. They were just an awesome team for a long time. And this is that Earth 2 it's the story of, or it's a retelling of the crime syndicate, the evil versions of the Justice League. And there's a great moment where one of the only characters from the Justice League that's left behind is Aquaman.
Of course.
And Power Ring, the evil Green Lantern analog, goes to fight him or dismiss him in anything. And Aquaman walks up to him. It's in that 90s era where he's got the harpoon, and he shoots a harpoon through his hand because that's what, he's got the ring or whatever. Pulls him to him and punches him in the face and knocks him out.
Nice.
But the structure is just so good because it's the pacing of it is you think it's going to be this awesome battle, or moreover you might think because it's Green Lantern, he's super powerful or something like that, and that he's just going to walk all over Aquaman, and Aquaman just
swats him down basically. Yeah. That's amazing. All right, I think mine for Aquaman, which isn't it's not fair to the character. It's not a very good look at the nobility that Aquaman has. But Flashpoint Paradox is such a cool take because obviously, if people haven't read it, Wonder Woman and Aquaman in this universe are at war with each other, and Aquaman's sunk most of Europe.
Yep.
Wonder Woman's taken over Great Britain with an army from Themyscira. But I don't know. Aquaman is such a foe. He's going toe to toe with Wonder Woman in this series. Yeah, but the drama is so bad. Again, this is why I said it's not a good take on his character, because Mira is killed when she finds out that Aquaman had a relationship with Wonder Woman.
Brutally killed.
Yeah, it's really bad. And then Wonder Woman just kind of showboats her crown.
Yeah.
And rubs it in his face. Oh, it's just not good.
I could see the horror in your eyes for the people that can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, Flashpoint Paradox in general is so dark and it's deeply disturbing, but that particular part was...
Yeah, you said it's not a good characterization of his nobility, but I think it is a good moment for that character to see what could have been.
Exactly. It kind of reaffirms how tough and strong Aquaman actually is.
A lot of those dystopian sort of moments are to show if they weren't moral, this is what they really
could happen.
Capable of.
Yeah.
So my favorite moment kind of has to do with Aquaman.
Who is it though? It's not Aquaman, is it?
No, but the situation happens because in this storyline, Arthur, Aquaman, is dethroned. He's not the king of Atlantis anymore. So it's when Mira kicks the absolute shit out of the entire Justice League by herself. To be fair, they try to fight her in water.
That was dumb.
Which is so stupid. And so it essentially happened. They're trying to calm her down because all this stuff is happening. She can't get in contact with them because of this group, the Crown of Thorns. I'm not going to go into it. That would be a whole nother episode. But it starts with Wonder Woman saying, Mira, calm down, we'll help you. And you don't ever tell Mira to calm down because she just explodes with all this rage. She has some of them in these bubbles of water, and then, they're all trying to fight her. She's just single-handedly destroying the Justice League. And then one of my favorite moments is in comics, if you've seen it, Batman's usually the one to kind of secretly sneak in. That was hard to say. Sorry.
Alliteration.
Sneak in and kind of incapacitate the foe. And he tries to do this with Mira, he's kind of a shark in water, and he pops up to tranquilize her, and then she just grabs him by the throat and is like, really? A tranquilize? I just think that's so cool. But yeah, that's my favorite moment. Yeah. So if you wanted to know more about those characters or get the confusion that we got when looking at the different origins. We'll put all their wikis and kind of histories and stuff on our blog, so check it out on there. So now, as always, comic book recommendation time.
Noise.
So I guess I'll start this one because it's it's very easy to tell.
What good Aquaman comic are you recommending to these people?
Hey, it does have to do with Aquaman, kind of.
It's a comic.
Yeah. So Mira has her own miniseries that just ended. It's a 6-part miniseries. It should be coming out in trade in the next month or so by Abnett, which has been doing the Aquaman run in Rebirth. So it's really good stuff. It's Mira, Queen of Atlantis. 6 issues, not hard to find. Art is amazing. It's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, for comic book recommendations, I'm always a fan if you're wanting to get into a character, just jumping in from the beginning of a continuity. In this case, just pick up Aquaman starting from the New 52, issue 1, Jeff Johns. If you get tired of hearing his name, sorry. He's great, so.
It's not our fault he wrote all these
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Man, if Jeff Johns ever writes a Loki series, this podcast is going to explode.
Probably.
It'll become a Loki podcast.
And then my recommendation is a story, 1989, came out called The Legend of Aquaman. I think you're really going to like it. It's a bit of a deep cut, but it's weirdly unprecedented. It was an attempt to kind of modernize the character. So it came out in 89, but it has this rebirth kind of feel. They sort of retell Aquaman's story very quickly. The art's beautiful. It feels very like out of time. Reminds me of Dave Gibbons' work a little bit. And like I said, it's just a retelling of his story. It feels like this weird combination of a fairy tale and like a myth or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend it. I think you're going to like it.
Nice.
Nice. So since there's a movie coming out, is there anything you guys want to see, don't want to see, are excited about, don't care about?
I want to see the movie. That's important to me.
You don't have anything specific that you're looking for?
I want it. Here's what I really want. And this is not specific, but I want it to look half as good or be half as good as the trailer looks.
You're just tired of being disappointed by DC.
No, I mean, not necessarily. Yes, but I mean, they've had
Speak for yourselves.
They've had some, no, but I think they've had just as many hits as misses. There's no reason that this has to be bad.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
Well, there's never a reason it has to be bad. It's just, they don't make it good.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I don't see any indication in the trailer that it's not going to be good. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's true that the rule is DC movies generally aren't good. I think that there've been some good and bad.
They're just controversial. I mean,
yeah. Well, yeah. And yeah, I can't think of something specific.
I think the only, not issue I have, but I mean, some of it's kind of been explained, but I hope they really explain it. So this is after Justice League, but it's the origin of him going to Atlantis. So I hope they kind of explain that well. Like, where did he get his gear and everything from? If he's never been there, did he already have it? Like, that kind of thing. Like, I'm not worried that they won't explain it. I'm just kind of interested to see what they do with it.
You're weirded out about the timeline stuff.
Yeah, like, I hope they don't mess up the timeline, because they did something different that Marvel did. They did the big team up kind of first. And then so that's fine, but I hope it just doesn't mess up the timeline, I guess. So
I think I'm most looking forward to hopefully some really intriguing take on Atlantean politics.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm most looking forward to.
It does look like they're doing the whole kind of touching into Thrones of Atlantis type stuff, where like you have Orm and Aquaman, they're fighting. Yeah. So I mean, I'm interested to see what, and it looks great. Yeah. Like, I'm just gonna say it looks so pretty.
Absolutely, yeah, it looks fantastic. I think I just don't want them to be generic, because I think there's been shots in the thing where like the big battle at the end. With
the whole swarm of enemies.
That's a good point. If it's the beginning, that's going to be it's a lot. But,
oh my God.
It's a hell of an act too.
Yeah. Downhill from here, folks.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's the big sea monsters versus the Atlantean army and all that kind of stuff. And I really hope that they I think there's things about this character that are so interesting and unique, and I hope to capitalize on that and don't just try to do a kind of paint by numbers safe sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, from what I see from it, it looks like it. Ow. Sorry. It looks like it's going to be like they've said, and James Wan, the director of the movie, has said it's going to be kind of part Indiana Jones, part big superhero movie. So I feel like that Indiana Jones part is really going to flesh out his character and then lead to like the big climactic thing. I think it is interesting that they're making the story, from what I can tell of the synopsis, like he has to go find the Trident of Atlantis to save blah, 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 blah. So I think that's interesting that that's where the whole Indiana Jones part plays in, where it's like, find this thing and then you can beat this thing type of thing. But yeah, those are my hopes for that movie. I'm just excited for it. And Mira, isn't it? So,
and Mira.
And guess what? Again, guys, we got another Patreon subscriber.
Another one.
Another one.
Thank you.
And this one is actually a really good friend of Kayla and I. We used to work with her, which I was really surprised that she is supporting our efforts to talk to the void. But
thank you, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. You might have heard her intro in the last episode.
She's been featured in the podcast.
Yeah, I think she you could be featured every episode if you want, if you just do stuff like that. But yes, thank you so much, Sarah. We are eternally grateful for it. And as it goes, we have to give her a supervillain name, superhero name, superpower.
Supervillain on this one. Nothing matter.
Dark. I like.
Yeah.
All right, how about she like sketches the portraits of people and traps their souls in her drawings?
You went pretty dark immediately.
Yeah, but
you said supervillain, and I was just, running with it.
She is a good artist. So
that's what I remember.
Yeah,
she's a Doctor Strange villain. Because you don't like do that to rob banks. You don't do that to hold up like a armored car truck. You just
her name could be the Eraser.
That's not bad.
Just erases them from existence.
Yeah. I think we gave her too much power, guys.
Don't erase us because we made you a villain.
Yeah.
Yes, but thank you, Sarah, so much. All right, so that was our Aquaman deep dive and special announcement.
Dun, dun, dun.
We got a giveaway. It is live now, the day that the episode came out. And guess what's on that giveaway, guys?
What is it?
I meant the listeners, not you guys.
Oh.
You guys should know what's on the giveaway.
We were speaking for the listeners.
Yeah. What is it? Tell us.
So on this giveaway, if you go to the website, there'll be links on social media as well. You can get to it. You got to do all the normal things that giveaways with podcasts and anybody entails. Follow us on all the stuff. Just follow the steps. So the giveaway has the first single issue of Mira. It's in a nice bag and board. It's all pretty, ready to go. We got the hardcover of Aquaman, the deluxe edition that just came out by Dan Abnett. And it's all pretty in plastic, never opened before, ready to go out. And then we also have a gift card to a movie theater. That way you can see Aquaman, which we're all excited about.
The only way you could see it, probably.
Yes, with our gift card. Yeah. Only ours. And then we also we actually have stickers with our logo on it.
Yes.
Which is great. And a mug with our logo on it. Who doesn't want a mug and stickers?
You could put coffee in it. You could put milk in it. You could put water in it.
Hot cocoa, 'tis the season.
And those are the 4 things. That's all.
Only things you're allowed to put on our mug. Yes, but all of that stuff is going to be on there. So enter. We will announce the winner the week that Aquaman comes out. So keep on the lookout for that. Yeah, good luck, guys.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.
Flying is just swimming in the air.